All right, let's dive into this retro marketing thing. You sent over this article, Le rétro marketing ou l'art de vendre avec le passé.
Yeah.
And, well, you're really interested in how brands are using nostalgia these days.
Yeah, how they sort of use the past to connect with people now.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to break it all down. How are they winning over consumers with this retro marketing thing?
It is pretty interesting. Like you think about it, like everything's always like, what's next? What's new? What's the newest thing?
Right, always chasing the next trend.
But this is like, it goes kind of against that. Retro marketing, it's not just copying the past. It's more about like using those old elements, to make you feel a certain way.
So there's a strategy to it. It's not just like, oh, let's throw a vintage filter on this and call it a day.
Exactly.
But why does it even work?
Yeah.
Is nostalgia really that powerful?
Well, think about it. When you see like an old design or you hear a jingle from when you were a kid, it's like you're right back there.
Instant time machine.
Yeah. And brands are, they want you to feel those good vibes. Like nostalgia can make you feel all warm and fuzzy, comfortable, you feel connected, you feel secure, and all of that makes you trust the brand more.
Okay, so it's like comfort food, but for your emotions.
Exactly.
I can see why this is more than just a passing fad.
And also it's like you walk into a store, like there are so many brands,
Well,
right?
absolutely.
Everyone's trying to get your attention. But retro marketing,
Yeah.
it's different. It stands out because it's familiar. It's like something real in this sea of, trends.
Like putting on your favorite old sweater.
Yeah.
The one that just feels right.
Exactly.
The article we're looking at mentions some specific benefits, right?
Oh, yeah.
Beyond just that good feeling.
Yeah, it's about authenticity. Consumers these days, they're smart, right? They want to know the story behind the brand.
They don't just want the thing, they want the feeling.
Right, that deeper connection.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
What else did the article say?
Well, look at brands like Coca-Cola, right?
Right.
They're always using those vintage images in their ads.
Yeah, they're iconic.
It makes them seem timeless. Like they've always been there, part of everything.
And the article did mention, like, long-term impacts.
Oh, absolutely.
These retro campaigns, they're not just a quick thing. They build loyalty.
Right. They really stick with people. It's because good retro campaigns, they actually work across generations.
Because everyone has those core memories.
Exactly. And those emotions, those memories, they connect with you in a way that lasts.
Okay, so say a brand wants to try this retro magic. What makes a campaign really work? It's got to be more than just dicking out something old from the archives.
Right. There are two big things from the article, visuals and storytelling.
Okay.
Visuals are first. It's all about setting the stage. You got to take the consumer back to that time.
Okay, so like the colors you use,
Yeah.
the fonts, the design, everything.
Yeah.
Like if I'm doing an 80s campaign, it's neon, right?
Yeah.
Bold patterns, that font that looks like it's straight out of an arcade game.
Exactly. Those little things. You see them and boom, you're right back there. But that's just the start. For a really great campaign, you need a good story.
That's where it gets really interesting. How do you capture that feeling but make it work for people today?
I've seen some brands, they'll share stories like grandparents using their product. It makes you feel connected to the past, different generations.
It's that human element, that shared history. Don't just show me something, make me feel it.
Exactly.
And where does social media fit into all of this? Because it seems perfect for retro marketing.
Oh, it totally is. Social media is like nostalgia on steroids.
I love that.
Think about it. Throwback photos, vintage memes, it's all over the place. And people can share their own stories.
And for brands, that's gold.
Right. It's like free advertising.
Yeah.
And it feels real because it's coming from actual people.
Not just some corporate message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They become like, ambassadors for the brand, spreading those good vibes.
Reaching way more people than a regular ad.
Exactly.
All right, so retro marketing. More to it than I thought.
Definitely.
But before we get too excited, what about pitfalls? The article mentioned a few.
Yeah, there's a fine line. You can use nostalgia, but you can't just copy and paste the past.
You'll lose people if it feels too dated.
Right. You got to make it relevant for today.
Balance the old and the new. Make it feel familiar but not outdated.
Yes, exactly. I can just imagine some of the bad campaigns. Like, imagine a tech company and they're trying to sell a new smartphone, but it looks like a rotary phone.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Like, cool aesthetic, but who wants a phone that doesn't even work right?
Yeah, nobody. So it's not enough to just be nostalgic. You gotta meet those modern expectations.
Right.
The article talked about some brands that got it right, though. Like Coca-Cola. They're the classics.
Oh, yeah, Coca-Cola. They use those old images, right, to feel timeless. But they keep coming up with new things, too.
They're not stuck in the past.
Exactly.
It's like they bottled the American dream or something.
Yeah.
Okay, besides Coca-Cola, what other brands are doing this retro thing really well?
Oh, Nintendo. They're killing it.
Oh, yeah, with those mini consoles.
Yeah. Like you get to go back to your childhood.
I know. Those were everywhere.
But with, the tech we have now.
And it works. Speaking of tech, I'm curious about Polaroid
Oh, yeah.
because they're back in a big way with instant cameras.
Yeah.
And that's like the opposite of what everyone else is doing.
Right. It's like they realized in a world of digital photos, people still want something they can hold.
Something tangible.
Yeah.
This is all fascinating.
Huh.
But before we go too deep into these brands, how do we use this ourselves?
Oh, yeah. Good point.
Because this isn't just for the big guys,
Not
right?
at all. Remember when we were talking about your target audience?
Yeah.
You got to think about what they grew up with, what makes them feel nostalgic.
So it's about finding common ground, what resonates with them and also fits my brand.
Exactly.
I bet that takes some real digging.
It does. And we'll talk more about that in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so stay tuned. We're just getting started with how to actually use this retro magic. Welcome back to our deep dive.
So, last time we were talking about figuring out your audience, right? Like what generation they are, what kind of nostalgia speaks to them.
Right, yeah.
But how do we actually use that? Like, how do we take those ideas and make them work for us?
So it's about figuring out the steps.
No.
Right. But it's not like one size fits all.
Okay. So how do we pick the right retro elements? It can't just be anything.
It's got to fit with your brand. You know what I mean? Your values, your message. Like, let's say you're a fashion brand.
Okay.
And you're inspired by the 70s, that bohemian style.
Yeah.
Your retro campaign is going to look way different than a tech company that's going for that, like, early computer look.
Totally. It's like putting together an outfit, right? The retro piece can't clash with everything else.
Exactly.
But beyond how it looks, how do you make it feel real?
Because people can tell when it's fake. The retro stuff, it has to be part of your story. It can't be some marketing trick. It can't be an afterthought, like a sticker you just slap on.
Yeah, like it has to be woven in.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why.
Yeah.
But now I'm thinking bigger picture.
Okay.
This whole retro thing, it's more than just like a tactic.
Right.
It says something about us, like
What?
as humans,
Mhm.
this thing we have with the past.
It is interesting, isn't it? Like we talked about nostalgia, but it's also about the stories we tell. Like
Yeah.
tapping into something everyone gets.
Yeah.
Like those things we all experience, those moments that connect us, even across generations.
And that's what makes it so powerful, I think. For
Yeah.
brands, it's not about the product. It's about connecting with people in a real way.
Exactly. Like those Coca-Cola ads or those Nintendo mini consoles.
Yeah.
They make people feel something. They get us talking. It's like we're all part of something.
So how do we as people do that? Like, where do we even start?
Well, remember how we talked about understanding your audience?
Yeah.
Got to think about your own nostalgia too. Like, what are the things that take you back?
Interesting.
What products, what brands, what experiences really make you feel that way?
So I start with myself and then see if I can connect that with the people I'm trying to reach.
Right. It's like you got to find that common ground, those things that we all get no matter our age.
Okay, so maybe it's music or an old video game,
Yeah.
a movie,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
really hits me.
Exactly.
Okay, I see where we're going with this,
Uh-huh.
but it seems tricky. How do you make it feel real and not like cheesy?
You got to be authentic. It can't be an add-on. It has to be part of who you are, what you stand for.
Yeah.
Because people can tell when you're faking it.
So it's not enough to just find any old retro thing. It has to be the right thing.
Exactly. And then you got to tell a story with it.
Oh,
Maybe you talk about how your product has changed over time.
Yeah.
Show how much care goes into it, its history. Maybe share stories from people who love your brand.
Make it personal
Yeah.
so people connect with it.
And visuals. Don't forget visual.
Oh, yeah.
Old photos, fonts that look vintage, maybe even make videos that feel like they're from another time.
So you want people to feel like they're actually there.
Right. And remember, this retro thing, it's not a one-time thing.
Oh, okay.
You got to keep at it. Keep using those elements in your message, how your brand looks, everything you do.
So it's about using the past, but not being stuck there. It's like finding those good things from back then
Yeah.
and making them work for us now.
Exactly. And who knows? Maybe we'll even rediscover things we'd forgotten.
This deep dive has been awesome. I see retro marketing in a whole new way.
It's really something, isn't it? It's not just marketing. It's about who we are, where we came from, and where we're going.
So as we go out into the world, let's look for those retro things, those little hints of the past that make us feel connected.
And let's enjoy a little nostalgia, right? It might just help us build a better future.
Thanks for coming on this journey with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive on retro marketing. It's been a lot to think about, hasn't it? Yeah, it has. We've gone from like the basics to how the big brands use it to like the really deep stuff about, humans in the past.
Yeah, the big picture stuff.
And now I think it's time to like make it real. How do we use all this in our own lives?
Right. Put it into action.
I started out thinking this whole retro thing was just a trend, but it's made me think about our connection to the past in a whole new way.
It's interesting, isn't it? We talked about nostalgia, but there's more to it than that. It's like we're telling stories.
Yeah.
And those stories connect us to something bigger, something everyone understands, no matter how old they are.
Yeah, it's like those shared experiences, those moments, they're powerful.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so powerful for brands. It's not just selling stuff. It's about connecting with people in a real way.
Like those Coca-Cola ads that everyone knows, or those Nintendo consoles.
Exactly. They make you feel something. And then you talk about it, you share it with other people. It's like we're all in it together.
So how do we as people do that? Where do we even begin?
Earlier we talked about understanding your audience, right? And I mentioned tapping into your own nostalgia.
Oh, right.
That's really where it all starts.
Okay.
Like, think about the things that make you feel that way. What takes you back?
Right. Start with myself.
What products, brands, experiences, whatever, really give you those feelings?
So I start there
Mm-hmm.
and then see if I can find a connection with like the people I'm trying to reach.
Right. It's about finding those things we have in common, those things that speak to all of us. Like maybe it's a type of music or, like an old video game.
Oh, yeah.
A classic movie, whatever makes you feel it.
Yeah, okay. I see how this works, but it feels like there's a fine line. How do
Yeah.
you make it feel genuine, not like you're forcing it?
You got to be authentic. Like
Yeah.
it can't be something you just tack on. It has to be part of who you are.
Oh, right.
What you believe in. Because people can tell when you're faking it.
So it's not just finding any old retro thing and using it. It has to be the right thing.
Exactly. And then you got to tell a story with it. Maybe talk about how your product, has changed over time.
Yeah.
Show how much care goes into it. Talk about its history. Maybe share stories from people who really love what you do.
Make it personal so people connect.
And visuals. Don't forget visuals. Old photos, fonts that look like they're from back in the day. Maybe even like make videos with that retro look.
So you want people to feel like they're really there back in that time.
Exactly. And this isn't like a one-time thing either.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be consistent, Keep using those elements in your message, what your brand looks like, everything.
So it's about looking to the past, but not getting stuck there. It's about taking those good things from back then and making them work now.
Yeah, exactly. And who knows, maybe we'll even rediscover some things we'd forgotten along the way.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. I get retro marketing in a whole new way now.
It's a fascinating thing, right? It's not just marketing. It's about who we are, what shaped us, where we're going.
Yeah. So I guess the takeaway is let's be open to those retro touches.
Yeah.
The things that remind us of the past and make us feel connected.
Absolutely. And let's enjoy it. That little bit of nostalgia, it might just help us build a better future.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into retro marketing. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.